Smoke claws at the night sky like desperate fingers, thick and acrid, carrying the bite of cedar and myrrh, twisted into something foul. At first you hear it, a low, hungry roar, like a beast chewing through wood and stone. Then come the sharp cracks of beams collapsing, and somewhere far off, the wail of a woman whose voice splinters and vanishes. Heat rolls in next, a living wall that sings the air before the glow stains the horizon crimson. Shadows writhe across the grand terrace. Colossal guardians, winged bulls with human faces, stand frozen in eternal watch, their carved eyes reflecting the inferno devouring the palace behind them. A soldier staggers past, arms overloaded with gold chalices that clink together like cruel laughter. His face is smeared with soot and something darker. He's smiling. He doesn't see you huddled in the alcove's gloom, silk robes torn, breath shallow, the weight of a lifetime of whispered obedience now ash in your throat. The air tastes of salt and fear, yours and thousands like it. This is no storm sent by the gods. This is the end of a world, and it has only just begun. What follows is a story of fire and erasure, drawn from the bones of history. It touches violence against women, the machinery of conquest that turns human lives into spoils. These shadows are real, etched into clay tablets and scorched stone. If the weight grows too heavy, pause here. Honor that. For those who stay, we do not walk to gloat over ruin, but to see the gears that grind empires and souls into dust. Step away if you must. The story will wait. Pull back. Breathe. The year is 330 BCE. Winter still clings to the Zagros Mountains like a burial shroud. Alexander of Macedon is barely 30 years old, eyes as sharp as the spear he never sets down. He has shattered the Persian heartland, not with one decisive blow, but with a cascade. Issus in 333, where Darius fled like a hunted animal. Gaugamela the year before, where tens of thousands of Persian lives bought Alexander a road east. Now that road ends here. Persepolis is not just a city, it is the Achaemenid pulse, a terrace hewn from living rock, rising like a god's throne above plains that bloom gold in spring. Darius the Great carved it 2 centuries earlier as a monument to unity. Delegations from every corner of the empire ascending its stairs in eternal procession. Nubian gold bearers, Scythian horse archers, Ionians with fish and cloth. Unity rendered in stone. But unity demands tribute, and tribute breeds resentment. To the Greeks, Persepolis is whispered about as the city of the Persians, a glittering wound left from the old wars, when Xerxes burned Athens in 480 BCE, leaving the Acropolis in flames. This invasion is not conquest born of impulse. It is a machine, oiled by grudge and gold. Alexander's father, Philip of Macedon, forged the League of Corinth in 338, binding the Greek city-states into a vow of vengeance against the East. Athens' ruins still scar the soil. Thebes had risen and fallen under Alexander's heel only months earlier, its men slaughtered, its women sold like cattle. Persepolis looms as the final ledger. 120,000 talents of silver and gold lie stacked in its vaults, enough to fund a decade of war. Alexander's men, ragged from years of marching across Anatolia and under the shadow of the Hindu Kush, smell not just wealth, but reckoning. He enters the gates unopposed. The satrap bows his head and surrenders. The garrison melts into the hills. For 3 months, the Macedonians camp amid splendor, audience halls echoing with laughter, gardens where roses defy the cold. But beneath the calm, gears are turning. Scouts report Darius rallying in the east. Whispers of rebellion stir in Bactria. Leave the treasure, and it mocks him. Destroy it, and the system breaks. This is not madness. It is accounting, cold and deliberate. The Persians built their empire on satraps and tribute, a web stretching from the Nile to the Indus. Alexander intends to burn the ledger, scatter the threads, and weave his own. Persepolis must fall not because it resists, but because it endures. Its flames will answer the Acropolis, closing a century-long circle of vengeance. And in that closing, the human cost will be written on bodies. Alexander was not forged in fire. He was tempered by it from the cradle. Born in Pella in 356 BCE, under a sky darkened by an eclipse, his mother Olympias claimed Zeus himself had fathered him. Philip, the bulldog king, hammered Macedonia from tribal backwater into the spear point of Greece. Home was no sanctuary. Olympias, and a pirate queen viewed as a witch by Macedonian elites, clashed with Philip's other wives, her son the prize in their quiet wars. At 12, Alexander tamed Persepolis, the black stallion no one else could ride, whispering to the animal's fear of shadows until terror bent into trust. That horse would carry him through dust and blood to the edge of the world. Aristotle tutored him at Mieza, 3 years beneath oak trees, steeped in Homer's rage, Plato's ideals, and the ethics of rule. But Alexander listened hardest to the lesson of Achilles. Glory is seized, not granted. War came early. At 16, he charged at Chaeronea, tasting command and its consequences. At 20, after Philip was murdered amid theater shadows, Alexander was crowned king. Rivals were purged with surgical precision. Olympias's hand was suspected, never proven. The message was clear. Then Thebes rebelled, dreaming of Spartan aid. Alexander answered by leveling the city, 6,000 dead, 30,000 sold into slavery. Only the poet Pindar's house was spared, a nod to the muses. Mercy was not the point. Oblivion was. Eastward, Darius tested him. Vast armies shimmering with wealth. Alexander flanked, broke them, and claimed the Persian king's tent. Purple robes, gold chariots, and Darius's family. When the queen mother prostrated herself before the wrong man, Alexander lifted her gently. Mother, he called her. Kindness or calculation, it won him legitimacy. But cracks showed. Old generals questioned the endless push east. One died by poison in 330, the same year Persepolis would burn. Loyalty frayed under ambition's weight. By the time Alexander reached the Persian gates, he was no longer a prodigy. He was the machine made flesh. The pass was narrow, stone-walled, a Thermopylae in reverse. Ariobarzanes, satrap of Persis, held it with 15,000 men. Alexander's frontal assault bled Macedonian blood. Companion cavalry fell in the rain, paths turning to mud. So he feigned retreat, bribed a local herdsman to guide a flanking force over goat tracks under a moonless sky. At dawn, steel struck from behind. The Persian line shattered. Ariobarzanes fled to his death. Persepolis lay open. Alexander paused at the foot of the terrace. Bucephalus snorted mist into the cold air. This was no ordinary city. This was culmination. The heart he would tear out to steal its beat. Aristotle's logic and Philip's iron now demanded payment. What came next would not begin with triumph's roar. It would begin with the quiet grind of gears, turning splendor into slag. Winter's grip loosened as spring crept in, but the air over Persepolis remained heavy, laced with jasmine from hidden courtyards and the faint metallic taste of fear. The terrace sprawled like a god's hand pressed into the earth. 50 acres of limestone platforms, stairways wide as rivers, flanked by lamassu, whose curled beards seemed to smoke in the shifting light. At its crown rose the Apadana Hall, where Persian kings once welcomed the world with wine and ritual. Now it echoed with foreign boots. Alexander quartered himself in Xerxes' palace. Ivory-paneled walls glimmered with lapis inlay. Mosaics of lions chasing prey glinted beneath torchlight. Below, nearly 30,000 soldiers, Macedonians, Thessalians, Thracians, Greeks, spilled into the lower town. Their tents bloomed across the plain like a rash. Persepolis' inhabitants, perhaps 20,000 souls, had traded submission for survival. Merchants kept stalls stocked with saffron and silk. Fire priests murmured prayers to Ahura Mazda as sacred flames flickered low. Among them lived Sarah, daughter of a minor noble from the empire's heartland. 20 summers had softened her features. Her eyes were dark as polished onyx. Her hair was braided and threaded with pearls, keepsakes from a mother lost to fever. She served in the women's quarters, a wing veined with fountains and rosewater pools, where attendants wove tapestries celebrating conquests long past. Sarah's days blurred into ritual, dawn ablutions in milk-scented steam, afternoons grinding pistachios for sweets no one truly tasted anymore. At night, she hummed old hymns while folding linens, her fingers tracing embroidered lions meant to guard the realm. She dreamed of letters from her brother in Susa, of laughter echoing in safer halls, of marriage whispers once spoken by a Babylonian scribe before war silenced them. She sketched birds on scraps of parchment, wings spread wide, longing for skies beyond the terrace. She was no queen, no symbol, just a thread in the weave, unseen yet strong. Tension coiled like a drawn bowstring. In lamplit councils, Alexander listened as Parmenion, old and scarred, urged caution. Fortify the city, hold the gold, use it against Darius's ghost in the east. But Alexander paced instead, maps spread before him, gaze fixed beyond the horizon. The vaults overflowed, bullion stacked to the ceiling, gems glittering like fallen stars. His men were unpaid, restless, hungry in ways coin alone could not satisfy. Whispers spread. Greeks demanded fire for Athens. Symposia stretched long into the night. Wine from Chios flowed dark and prophetic. Among the officers moved Thais, an Athenian courtesan with honeyed words and flint-edged eyes. She spoke of Xerxes' arrogance, of temples burned, of women dragged away in chains. "Let us repay them," she toasted, cup raised high. Alexander laughed, but something hardened behind his eyes. Sarah heard the rumors filter into the women's wing. Guards grew lax, their tongues loosened by Macedonian silver. One evening, as the equinox neared, a captain broad as a bull staggered to the gate, beard braided with stolen trinkets. "The king demands tribute," he slurred, eyes roaming. Elders stepped forward, veils drawn tight. The demand sharpened. Jewels, linens, and women offered as gifts.